Typical Ron Tindale stuff. Therefore I asked him if I could have copies of them. After a couple of prompts, I was given copies of the two addresses. They were excellent indeed. I was told by Ron that I shouldn't move to publish them, and I've got a couple of avenues of publishing. I was told nicely, but very clearly, in the spirit that Alan's just conveyed, they would need further work. Ron's reticence in this little anecdote is representative of Ron in a number of ways. He doesn't characteristically draw attention to himself, and that does not mean, however, that he always avoids it. Excellence warrants recognition. Ron's paper on leadership, given in Hong Kong, was very carefully crafted. In it, mindful of context, and that again is typical of Ron, he quoted a 6th century Chinese philosopher's observation. And I'll quote, "A leader is best when people barely know he exists." And I'll apologise now for 6th century Chinese sexism. Or it may be the translator. "Not so good when people obey and acclaim him. Worse when they despise him. But of a good leader who talks little when his work is done, his aim fulfilled, they will say, 'We did it ourselves.'" It's a good quote, Ron, and it's an appropriate choice, and one in which we can all place Ron, the good leader. When Ron is involved, things tend to happen smoothly. With Ron, there is purpose and pattern. People are encouraged to excel. Now, over the last 30 years, I've met literally hundreds of health managers, some absolutely wonderful individuals, and some perhaps not so impressive as people. Ron has been a friend, a close friend, for over 20 of those 30 years. Ron ranks with the wonderful people. He's a really special person. This evening brings together many friends and is a statement of the respect and affection with which Ron is held and with which Ron always engenders. Apart from having that rare formula that combines talent, commitment, personal warmth, and a wicked sense of humour, he has a balance about him. This balance inspires confidence and trust. It is backed by a very keen intellect and very high integrity. Health management was fortunate that Ron was attracted to his profession. And Ron has done more than the job of a busy senior health executive. In fact, for many people, the jobs that Ron has had since 1971 in Canterbury, Wollongong, Hornsby, Northern Sydney and Western Sydney, and I had forgotten the mess uniform, would have been jobs that would have been sufficiently challenging to be the sole focus of their entire careers. Ron, however, went more than one step further than being an excellent executive. He has contributed to national and professional direction setting through his voluntary contributions to 3 national health organisations: the Australian Healthcare Association, the Australian College of Health Service Executives, and the Australian Council on Healthcare Standards, and all 3 bodies are represented here this evening, Ron. In each he gave national council service for periods of some 10 years. He held executive positions in the governing boards of each. Professional standards in education and health management, advocacy for public health sector advancement, and standard setting for healthcare delivery have all been strengthened by Ron's contributions. At the New South Wales level, he added the College New South Wales councillor role and being a councillor on the Health Services Association of New South Wales. This is all on top of the demands of a senior manager. The College and the AHA have each awarded Ron their medals for outstanding achievement, the College Gold Medal and the AHA Sydney Sachs Award. No other individual has ever been so recognised during their career. Ron has also been a director of the College's New South Wales Management Development Program in his time at Hornsby. His interest in supporting the development of aspiring managers has always been evident. It just wasn't Hornsby entirely. It's been part of Ron's thoroughly professional career. His dedication is legendary. The less subtle might call him a workaholic. But there's more than that in Ron. Family are reflecting. He is an all-round, balanced and well-integrated person. He is a much-loved family man. His wife Elizabeth and their children, Craig, Bruce, Scott and Nicole and their families are central. His contribution to community welfare outside his own work is another focus. He is an avid music lover and actually, I believe, Ron, you earned money playing in a band, but he is a more than competitive golfer and a prize-winning photographer, a person of depth and achievements. Golf, however, where I've seen a lot of Ron, has always been a concern to me. A perfectionist on a golf course is not necessarily a pretty sight. Or being in Ron's vicinity when a shot goes astray, not always pretty listening. Nothing was left unsaid. But that's just a small imperfection in an otherwise extraordinary person. Ron is leaving Western Sydney, and Ron, we are all with you in spirit. He's a much respected, indeed loved individual. We are here tonight to recognise his achievements and to thank his family also for giving so much of him to Western Sydney, as well as to the wider health systems in New South Wales and Australia. In his 1997 address in Hong Kong, Ron also said, perhaps with, I think, some degree of irony, and again I quote, "In Australia we tend to recognise leaders who have made good through sheer personal effort or innate skills." Shouldn't have given me these papers, Ron, should you? He continued, "This explains in some ways why so many sports people in Australia are revered as leaders, as distinct from politicians, and with due respect to Kevin and others, academics, with due respect to Peter and others, and managers, and that's due respect to a lot of people here." Ron, of course, is only right to a degree. And I'll point out, if you listen very carefully to the words, it's a relative statement anyway. There was always at least one exception that more than tests any such general statement. The exception, of course, is evidenced by Ron himself, a manager who, because of his personal efforts and innate talents, is revered as a leader. He has given outstanding service to the community. In so doing, he has never sought the fanfare or the limelight. It was often, however, thrust upon him. Excellence is recognised. Ron, everyone here tonight is appreciative of all that you have achieved, and for you just being you. We all are richer from our contact with you. We thank you and think of you.
Bill, thank you very much indeed. We're going to try a little bit of technology and hope it works, and present to you the guest of honour this evening, Ron Tindale.
Good evening and thank you very much. I feel very humbled by the remarks which have been made, but nevertheless I am honoured by your presence. As you can perhaps easily understand, tonight is a fairly emotional evening for me, indeed one of the toughest. So if I happen to stumble or go over the edge a little, you will appreciate the circumstances and why I have recorded this response. Before commencing, however, I think I should mention some notable attendees here this evening, including a former Minister for Health in New South Wales, the Honourable Kevin Stewart, his wife Jean, and Dr. Greg Stewart, the Director General of New South Wales Health, Mr Mick Reed, a former Director General in New South Wales and also a former CEO of Western Sydney, Dr Bernie Amos, and the Chairman of Western Sydney, Professor Peter Castaldi, and his wife Norma, and indeed many others who have contributed greatly to the New South Wales health system. Thank you all for coming. I've now worked in Western Sydney for just on 10 years, and it has been an experience which I would not have missed. Exciting, fulfilling, frustrating, and sometimes disappointing, but always pleasurable and enjoyable. The latter, pleasurable and enjoyable, because of each and every one of you here tonight, and many others throughout the area and across the entire health system in New South Wales. The camaraderie, the esprit de corps and working environment has made it a pleasure to be associated with all the people here tonight, together with many who are not here. I would like to thank the 3 CEOs I have worked with here in Western Sydney. Fred Curtis, and really Fred, I don't want to share another hotel room with you. The impeccable and professional Tom Hamilton, and the outwardly gruff and tough Alan McCarroll, whose sensitivity and understanding to my situation over the last 18 months is something he would not openly show. I'd also like to thank the various board members over the years who have contributed to the development of the Area Health Service. We have had some interesting chairmen, but it should be reassuring to everybody to know that with Peter Castaldi, we now have the best in the business, irrespective of the politics of the day. May I also express to a wide range of people who have supported and assisted me in the extensive range of initiatives and programs we have put into place my gratitude. They include clinical heads, general managers, executive directors, divisional and departmental and service directors, and as I say, their ongoing contribution has been all that could be asked. That, of course, is encompassed within the support we've also had from other areas and the New South Wales Health Department. Could I also mention my pleasure in having been associated with the Australian Healthcare Association, the Australian College of Health Service Executives, the Australian Council on Healthcare Standards, and the Hospital and Health Services Association of New South Wales. These people I've met during that learning experience includes the likes of Don Child, Keith Bagley, Diana Horvath, Bill Lawrence, John Dunlop, Dennis Smith, Alan Hughes, Milton Noble, and many, many others to whom I am extraordinarily grateful. As you are all aware, I have experienced the sharp end of our services, literally. And I cannot express adequately the expertise and compassion and understanding with which I have been treated. Unfortunately, the outcome was not what I, or indeed all of us, would have wanted, but no effort was spared by Westmead in providing me with every possible treatment program and initiative that was available. My family has been incredibly supportive, both my wife and children, and I would like to thank them publicly for that love and support. My children have tended to take the mickey out of their mother a little, and one of the more recent examples was a sign in our former backyard at Cherrybrook entitled "Fairies at the Bottom of the Garden." Well, what relationship, you might ask, does that have to my circumstances? Well, we've got quite a few angels in C5A, C5B, C5C, the oncology and haematology wards of the hospital, together with, I suspect, many other wards and departments throughout Westmead. Finally, may I thank my colleagues and friends on the area executive, a truly cohesive group of team players who I was proud to be associated with. I was also blessed with secretarial and executive assistant staff here at Western Sydney in the form of firstly Betty Evans and then of course the legend Margaret Stichter. And I am indebted to them both as I am to another executive assistant from Hornsby and Northern Sydney Area Health Service, Gian Taylor, who is also here tonight. May I simply conclude by saying thank you for the privilege of working and being associated with you. Thank you.
Peter Castaldi, would you please come forward? And Alan McCarroll.
I've seen some impossible acts in my time, but Ron, that was the greatest. I think there are only three things that I'd like to say. The first is that I joined the board of Western Sydney Area Health Service in 1990, which was the time that our dear friend Fred Curtis brought Ron Tindale from Northern to Western. And I don't need to point out what an immense favour we were all done. The second thing that I'd like to say is a tenant, in a way, that's carried me through much of my mature years of life. And it's the simple conclusion that one of the best things in life that one can experience is the absence of criticism. And I think that that personifies, absolutely epitomises the role that Ron has played. We like praise, but praise is cheap. If we're not having criticism, that's often high praise. And I think Ron's role throughout his career has been marked by an absence of criticism. And the third thing I'd like to say with Alan is a sort of an announcement that the board has adopted a proposal that we should in perpetuity create the Ron Tindale Scholarship in Health Service Management. Ron doesn't want to say anything, and I don't think he should be expected to. Alan might like to have a final word.
It's getting a bit soppy, Ron. We did buy a gift, but it couldn't fit in the tent. So this is the small representation of it. Would you come up and accept this? And where are Elizabeth's flowers? Oh, those are. Sorry, no, I thought they were the decoration. Come up, please, Elizabeth. There's your gift, Ron. Tindale.